Hello everyone. Let's start with the new topic, dispersal of modern humans. So finally, our story that started with the primates, then Australopithecines, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, archaic Homo sapiens, anatomically modern Homo sapiens, it has finally come to a closure. And right now we are talking about how the modern Homo sapiens dispersed out of Africa and populated the whole world. और आगे बढ़ने से पहले let's have a quick review of the human evolution, the saga that started with the KPG extinction event. So this journey of human evolution, it began with the KPG extinction event that happened around 66 million years ago, and the event wiped out non-avian dinosaurs. And after their demise, the ecological niches, the open ecological niches were filled by mammals, which was a crucial milestone in the journey of human evolution. Then इसके बाद आया पेलियोसीन इपोक और इन सब के बारे में पिछले कई वीडियोस में एक जियोलॉजिकल हिस्ट्री की टाइमलाइन आपको बताई है. So in the Paleocean epoch, mammals they started diversifying rapidly into various forms, और उन्हीं diversification में one form was primate, the early primate that were arboreal, जो पेड़ों पे रह रहे थे, living on trees. Then primates they started emerging and radiating in the Eocene epoch, and by this time these primates they have developed stereoscopic vision, prehensile hands, and large brain. Stereoscopic vision means to perceive depth, a better vision, overlapping vision. Hands mean the limbs that help in grasping. Where a crucial evolutionary milestone, the development of brain, जिसकी वजह से धीरे धीरे यही ब्रेन जो है आगे इवॉल्व होते होते फाइनली होमोसेपियंस में इवॉल्व हुआ. फिर ईओसीन के बाद द नेक्स्ट माइलस्टोन वाज द मायोसीन इपोक, and then here many primates they left the trees and started the terrestrial lifestyle. So there was a shift from arboreal to terrestrial lifestyle which was necessary, and this terrestrial shift it led to the evolution of bipedalism, and with bipedalism came the first hominids, our great ape ancestors. फिर मायोसिन के बाद came the Pliocene. और Pliocene में there started our closest ancestor, the hominins. और इन्हीं hominins में the saga it started with Ardipithecus and many such Australopithecines. Then फिर जो crucial की कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स हैं होमिनिन्स के, बाइपेडलिज्म हो गया, ब्रेन हो गया, द फॉरवर्ड प्लेसमेंट ऑफ फोरम एंड मैग्नम हो गया. सो ये सब इवोल्यूशनरी चेंजेस जो हैं दे स्टार्टेड टेकिंग मेजर फॉर्म्स. फिर केम द प्लेस्टोसीन इपोक, द इवोल्यूशनरी नाइटमेयर, और प्लेस्टोसीन इपोक के साथ दे स्टार्टेड मेजर एडवांसमेंट सच एज होमो हैबिलिस that is associated with older one tools. फिर होमो हैबिलिस के बाद होमो इरेक्टस, then archaic homo sapiens, and eventually this journey it culminated with the evolution, the arrival of modern homo sapiens, also known as anatomically modern homo sapiens, around 300,000 years ago. And this is the whole journey, and right now we are talking about those anatomically modern Homo sapiens that evolved in Africa and how they are going to disperse and populate the rest of the world till the times to come. So, to list out this dispersal, there are three hypotheses: out of Africa hypothesis, the multi-regional continuity hypothesis, and the partial replacement or assimilation model. So let's talk about the first out of Africa hypothesis, and this last chapter about dispersal, it is going to be very simple. ज़्यादा टफ नहीं है, जो बेसिक्स हैं वो सब आपने इसके पहले के जितने भी वीडियोस हैं और जो इंट्रोडक्शन में जो बताया जिसके जिसके साथ आर एसोसिएटेड मैनी प्रीवियस लेक्चर, उसमें सब आपको समझ में आएगा. इट इज द फाइनल कल्बिनेशन. यू कैन see it as a summarized version. Now, this hypothesis is the most widely accepted explanation for the origin and the spread of modern Homo sapiens. And according to this hypothesis, modern humans they first evolved in Africa between 300,000 to 200,000, and they migrated out of Africa to populate the rest of the world. And there is the third element, that in this dispersal and migration, they either replaced or interbred, minimally interbred with the existing archaic populations such as Neanderthals and Denisovans. So all in all, this model, it emphasizes a single origin, the monogenesis of modern humans, that is in Africa. Now the key proponents. So when I look at the previous year question, I found that many such questions, especially the multiple choice question and objective question, they ask about the proponents of each of these models. So the out of Africa hypothesis is associated with the key proponents such as Christopher Stringer, who is a British anthropologist that is associated with the Natural History Museum in London, and he is a leading supporter of this out of Africa model. Then the second proponent is Alan Wilson, who is a geneticist from University of California, Berkeley, and he is famous for introducing the mitochondrial Eve concept, which is based on molecular clock study of mitochondrial DNA. And this is key genetic evidence that support the African origin. Now the molecular clock thing is first mitochondrial DNA. So every human cell, it it has a nucleus in which the nuclear DNA is there, and then there is a mitochondria which is in the extracellular matrix, and mitochondria which is also called the powerhouse of cell, because जो fuel है, जो energy source है, it is from mitochondria, and mitochondria has its own DNA known as the mitochondrial DNA. अब जो mitochondria है, it is solely inherited from the maternal line. ये father से inherit नहीं होता है. So by looking at the genetic analysis, but looking at the mutations in various population, the genetics they have arrived at this molecular clock thing. So this thing is simple. When you look at the genomic data of people from everywhere, people of this world, of different cultures, of different nationalities, और उन सब लोगों के जो डीएनए जीनोमिक एनालिसिस हैं, उनमें द म्यूटेशंस वो स्टडी किए जा रहे हैं कि पर्टिकुलर किन किन में कौन कौन सा म्यूटेशन हुआ है. फिर उस म्यूटेशन रेट को देखा जाता है, बिकॉज in evolutionary term, mutations are very slow and they are steady. Steady means mutations happen at a constant rate. So उस म्यूटेशन की जो कांस्टेंट रेट है उसको बोलते हैं मॉलिक्यूलर क्लॉक. तो यहाँ पे जो मॉलिक्यूलर क्लॉक है या जो कांस्टेंट म्यूटेशन रेट है उसको स्टडी करके द सेम चेन इट कैन बी वीव डाउन. और यही हुआ है माइटोकॉन्ड्रियल ईव कंसेप्ट में. ये सारे जेनेटिक कंसेप्ट्स हैं, उनको जब उनके बीच में डाइवर्सिटी देखी गई, जीनोमिक एनालिसिस हुआ, और यही जो म्यूटेशन रेट है, ये जो आउट ऑफ अफ्रीका पॉपुलेशन, नॉन अफ्रीकन पॉपुलेशन है, उनके अंदर म्यूटेशंस बहुत कम है, एंड जो अफ्रीकन पॉपुलेशन है उनके अंदर ये ज्यादा है. बट इन शॉर्ट, यहाँ पे जो माइटोकॉन्ड्रियल ईव का कंसेप्ट है, तो व्हेन यू स्टार्टेड वीविंग अ phylogenetic tree, it's like a register of key changes. तो जब ये phylogenetic tree was created out of the maternal side, out of the constant mutations in mitochondria, so that's how this phylogenetic tree led to the African lineage, led to a source population that lie in Africa. So that's how this spatial evidence is cited. वो अभी आगे और देखते हैं. Now let's talk about the supporting evidence in this theory. So first is fossil record. So Africa hold the oldest and most definitive fossils of AMHS. And first one is from Jebel Irhoud in Morocco, which is dated around 300,000, and which are the oldest fossils of Homo sapiens. And the fossils of Jebel Irhoud, they show mix of archaic and modern feature, but most of the feature they are consistent with AMHS, जो इससे just पहले वाला जो वीडियो था. And Homo first and Homo second ये Ethiopia, which is dated around 195,000. ये भी पिछले वीडियो में देखा ही that the Homo 1 fossil, it show consistently modern human features, modern AMHS features such as high cranial vault, presence of chain, small brow ridges, whereas Homo second, it shows some transitional features, some primitive and archaic feature. And both of them, they exist in the same layer. Both of them, they they are dated to the same time. So इससे ये चीज सामने आती है that both of them, they are coexisting together and maybe interbreeding together. And second जो conclusion है उसका ये है that same time पे अफ्रीका के अंदर ही different sub population थी with variations. Now the third fossil evidence from Herto, which is again from Ethiopia, dated around 160,000 years ago, and it belongs to a subspecies. जैसे Homo second भी एक subspecies हो सकता है. So this fossil belonged to a subspecies called Homo sapiens idalto, and again it it shows transitional features with modern cranial feature along with some primitive postcranial features. So all in all of these fossils demonstrate that modern human anatomy can be traced to East Africa, around East African Rift Valley. फिर genetical evidence की बात करते हैं. The false evidence is the mitochondrial DNA. So the research on mitochondrial DNA, the genomic study on the molecular clocks, on the constant mutation rate, it led to the discovery of mitochondrial Eve, our maternal ancestor of whole human population today, that lived in Africa around 150 and to 200,000 years ago. And all living humans, they share mitochondrial DNA derived from this African lineage. Pair the same, similar to mitochondrial DNA, the Y chromosome analysis है that that is similar to a paternal ancestor, वो भी was traced to Africa at the same time. और दोनों के अंदर पैटर्न सेम है, जो मेथड है वो सेम है. म्यूटेशंस देखे जाते हैं by taking up a pool of genome across all populations. फिर उस पूल, जीनोमिक पूल के अंदर जो जो जीन एनालिसिस हैं, उसमें फर्स्ट म्यूटेशंस के अंदर पैटर्न देखे जाते हैं. और पैटर्न जो है, फर्स्ट पैटर्न जो यहाँ पे जो ट्रेसिंग के लिए यूज करते हैं, दैट इज द म्यूटेशन रेट, बिकॉज म्यूटेशन रेट इज कांस्टेंट एंड स्टडी. तो उस म्यूटेशन रेट या मॉलिक्यूलर क्लॉक से एक फाइलोजेनेटिक ट्री प्रिपेयर करते हैं कि आखिर किस पॉपुलेशन में किस रेट से चेंजेस हुए हैं, यानी किस पॉपुलेशन का डीएनए कितना ओल्ड है. तो उस हिसाब से जब फाइलोजेनेटिक ट्री तैयार किया जाता है. तो इन सिंपल, अगर आपको समझ में ये नहीं आ रहा था फाइलोजेनेटिक ट्री का, सो इफ यू टेक अप हियर लाइक ईस्ट एशियन पॉपुलेशन का जो डीएनए है, ये यहाँ पे ऐसा है. फिर सिमिलर ईस्ट एशियन पॉपुलेशन में भी कोरियन हो सकता है, चाइनीज हो सकता है, नॉर्थ कोरियन हो सकता है, साइबेरियन या अलास्कन हो सकता है, मंगोलियन हो सकता है. फिर इसी तरह से ये ट्री जो आप तैयार करेंगे, सेम यहाँ पे एक ईस्ट अफ्रीकन पॉपुलेशन का हो गया, ईस्ट एशियन पॉपुलेशन का, तो सेम ये साउथ एशियन पॉपुलेशन का भी. सो जबकि ये ट्री प्रिपेयर होगा इन दिस वे, जैसे ट्री होता है, so if there are branches then there must be a stem, और स्टेम है तो there must be root. so यहाँ पे इस सिंपल डायग्राम से आप समझ सकते हैं कि if there are so many branches, कि एक ईस्ट एशियन ब्रांच है, साउथ एशियन ब्रांच है, वेस्ट एशियन ब्रांच है, मिडिल ईस्टर्न ब्रांच है, ये फिर ये नॉर्थ अमेरिकन ब्रांच है, ये लैटिन अमेरिकन ब्रांच है। तो इतने सब ब्रांचेस हैं, तो दे माइट बी अ स्ट्रक्चर दैट स्टार्टेड समवेयर इन द डीप पास्ट। सो इसी फाइलोजेनेटिक ट्री में जब ये कांस्टेंट रेट जो है, ये डिकेइंग जो है, ये जब ट्रेस किया जाता है, इट ट्रेसेस अप टू समवेयर सम सोर्स पॉपुलेशन। और यही मॉलिक्यूलर जो ट्री है या मॉलिक्यूलर एनालिसिस है, इट लेड अस टू आवर द मैटरनल एंसेस्टर दैट एग्जिस्टेड इन अफ्रीका। और यही सेम चीज है, इट वाज डन इन द वाई क्रोमोसोम एनालिसिस। डिफरेंट पॉपुलेशन जो है उन सब के वाई क्रोमोसोम है उनको एनालाइज किया, कांस्टेंट म्यूटेशन रेट जो है उनको एनालाइज किया, फाइलोजेनेटिक ट्री प्रिपेयर किया। देन ब्रांचेस के बाद जो जो कांस्टेंट म्यूटेशन रेट है उसमें जो ओल्डेस्ट वन है दैट एक्ट एज अ रूट, और फिर वही जो है हमारा पैटर्नल एंसेस्टर है। Now the next evidence is about genetic diversity. That the most African population, the modern African population, they show the greatest genetic diversity. So again, यहाँ पे ये concept आपको समझने में और better रहेगा. So how can greatest genetic diversity can be cited as an evidence of evolution of modern living population, modern human population? So यहाँ पे thing is, greater diversity, it implies an older origin due to the more time for mutation to accumulate. So in short, the same phylogenetic tree with same branches, now जो oldest जो होगा उसके अंदर डाइवर्सिटी, जेनेटिक डाइवर्सिटी है वो ज्यादा होगी। यानी म्यूटेशंस जो है, जब म्यूटेशंस रेट को स्टडी करेंगे, देन जो जिसमें म्यूटेशंस कम हुए हैं, देन दिस पॉपुलेशन इज यंगर। और जिनमें म्यूटेशन ज्यादा हुए हैं, म्यूटेशन रेट ज्यादा है, वो पॉपुलेशन विल बी ओल्डर। जो ओल्डर पॉपुलेशन होती है वही सोर्स पॉपुलेशन होती है। तो one way of looking at this is that older population will have greater genetic diversity because of introduction of mutations. In younger population, they will have lesser genetic diversity because the mutations they are less. Now the next evidence is the limited admixture with archaic humans. So when the genome of non-African humans, means the genome of all Asian population, American population, यूरोपियन पॉपुलेशन, तो इनका जब जीनोम स्टडी किया तो इट वाज फाउंड दैट only 1 to 3% of Neanderthal DNA and 4 to 6% of Denisovan DNA what was admixture. So this indicate limited interbreeding. In short, if 100 is counted as standard, then most of the non-African population, they have 97% African DNA and 3% Neanderthal DNA. And when we talk about the oceanic groups, Melanesian group, they carry around 95% on average, 95% African DNA and 5% Denisovan DNA. So यहाँ भी जो numbers हैं, the quantity, it numerical majority, it matters. So in any way, अगर जो सोर्स पॉपुलेशन दूसरी होती तो यहाँ पे जो कंट्रीब्यूशन है ये 1 to 3% की जगह सिग्निफिकेंट कंट्रीब्यूशन होता। तो दिस इज अगेन सिग्निफाई वन थिंग दैट मोस्ट ऑफ द मॉडर्न ह्यूमन द डिसेंडेंट फ्रॉम द अफ्रीकन एंसेस्टर। And now let's talk about the archaeological data. So many evidences are cited, especially when we have the genetic analysis, we have the scientific marker, but still the anthropologists, they have looked everywhere because this thing is quite sensitive. This thing, this racial thing, this ethnocentrism, it is not digestible easily, especially whenever the modern people, when they look at this statistic, they look at this finding that all of their DNA, it can be traced to one African ancestor. So sometimes people do not take this, at face value. So that's why so many evidences are necessary. So हम archaeological data की बात करते हैं. सो फर्स्ट टूल टेक्नोलॉजी. सो अफ्रीका के अंदर this tool technology, middle stone tools that employed Levallois flakes, prepared core technique. So यहाँ पे जो later evidences हैं, when later population they use this particular prepared core technique, it also suggests that yes, this particular thing, this Levallois, it emerged in Africa before 100,000 years ago. In another way, you can say that the Levallois flake, जो बाद में Neanderthal, which can be associated with Homo erectus and Neanderthal, so उनके पहले the Homo sapiens they already had this technology, and this technology might have diffused from these Homo sapiens to the rest of the group. But symbolic behavior. So here the Blombos cave, it provide evidence of ochre use, pigment use, engraved pieces and shell beads ornamentation that date back to 75 to 100,000 years. So again, यहाँ भी this signifies that जो later European या जो Asian sites पे, Asian fossil sites पे जो भी evidence मिले हैं, all of them they can be traced from the African sites. फिर जो burial practices and decorative artifacts हैं, they were also present in African fossils. So all of these evidence they point to the same, the homogenesis, that all the modern population they can be traced, that they have a single ancestor in Africa. Now the dispersal pathway. So after evolving in Africa, AMHS they began to migrate outward around 70,000 to 50,000 years ago. The main migration route, first one, the northern route via Sinai Peninsula. Sinai Peninsula, the triangular peninsula that houses Israel, Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, and from there they moved into the Levant. Levant भी जो area है that consists of Israel, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, ये सब सारा जो area है, it was known as the Levant in the older times. And from the Levant they moved into Europe, और यूरोप में आते ही they came into the Neanderthal territory, where दो outcome, first interbreeding, cultural interaction, and finally the extinction of Neanderthals. Then the other route, the southern coastal route. So the second wave, it moved eastward from Horn of Africa, crossing the Bab el-Mandeb Strait into Arabia. So this particular route, it is of coastal and marine route, and फिर इसी coastal route से the migrant they reached India, Southeast Asia, and finally Australia. और इससे पहले वाले वीडियो में जो Lake Mungo, it provide evidence that AMHS they reached there by 40,000 to 50,000 years ago. Now the implication of this model. So first, it signifies that AMHS they replaced earlier hominins, other archaic Homo sapiens like Neanderthals, Denisovan, and Homo erectus in Southeast Asia. And this was primarily a biological replacement, not a conflictual replacement, not a competitive replacement. And they might have been, these archaic Homo sapiens, they might have been replaced because the AMHS, they had greater adaptability, cultural superiority, and cognitive advantages. The second significance, this model, it established Africa as the cradle of both anatomical and behavioral modernity. Now the second hypothesis, multi-regional continuity hypothesis. This hypothesis is also called the regional continuity model, and it is an alternative view to out of Africa theory. So this model proposes that AMHS they did not evolve in one single region like Africa, but they evolved simultaneously in multiple parts of the world. So it assumes that different Homo sapien population that exist today, they evolved parallel to the African population. And the mode of evolution was cited is that the the modern population of each of these regions, they evolved from local archaic Homo population that existed at that time. So local population like Homo erectus of Asia or Neanderthal of Europe. So this talks about parallel evolution. And then there's a thing about कि अगर ऐसा है, if the local populations they evolve into the local variety of Homo sapiens, then they might have been, um, non-uniformity across different लेवल्स, डिफरेंट लोकेलिटी. क्योंकि आज जितना कनेक्शन है, आज जितना ट्रांसपोर्टेशन है, वो पहला उतना तो था नहीं. सो ऐसे में अगर डिफरेंट पॉपुलेशंस आर लिविंग इन आइसोलेशन, और ये हमने जेनेटिक ड्रिफ्ट में या बॉटलनेक इवेंट में हमने देखा है that if a population, if it remains isolated for a long time, then it gives rise to a founder effect. Founder effect means because of isolation, that population is going to emerge as a newer species. So यहाँ पे अगर ऐसा होता तो ये जो जितनी भी populations हैं जो different regions में है, वो सब होमो सेपियंस ही क्यों हैं. डिफरेंट पॉपुलेशन जो है वो अलग, होमो सेपियंस के बाद भी अलग सब पॉपुलेशन या न्यूअर स्पीशीज क्यों नहीं बनी. सो उसका जो एविडेंस उन्होंने दिया है कि ये जो डिफरेंट पॉपुलेशंस हैं दैट एग्जिस्टेड इन अफ्रीका, यूरोप, एशिया, लैटिन अमेरिका, ओशियानिया, जो वहाँ पे जो लोकल वैरायटी ऑफ archaic populations हैं, they remain interconnected through gene flow. Means they were always intermingling, interaction, interbreeding across regions, and because of this interbreeding, there was never an isolation. There were never a period of isolation that could have led to the development of separate species. So in short, जो डिफरेंट लोकल पॉपुलेशन है उनके बीच में लिमिटेड या अकेजनल इंटरब्रीडिंग थी. अकेजनल इंटरब्रीडिंग की वजह से जीन फ्लो, और जीन फ्लो की वजह से ओवरऑल यूनिफॉर्मिटी मेंटेन रही. ओवरऑल जो पॉपुलेशन है वो होमो सेपियंस ही रही. तो दैट वाज द की आर्गुमेंट forwarded by this model. So this model again suggests that modern humans, they have regional roots, but then they evolved into a single species due to gene flow, due to genetic exchange. Now the key proponents: first, Milford H. Wolpoff, who is an American paleoanthropologist, and he advocated the regional fossil continuity that proves local evolution of modern Homo sapiens population. And the second one is Alan Thorne, an Australian anthropologist who supported this idea of local evolution, and he cited the various Australian fossil evidence like Ko Swam or Lake Mungo that challenged the single African origin idea. Now the supporting evidence. So first, this model provided fossil evidence of regional continuity. So they argue that the fossil, they show gradual evolution from archaic to modern features. Example, first, in East Asia, the fossils of the East Asian or the Chinese Homo erectus, Peking man, and the later human, they show similar traits such as shovel shaped incisors, जो front teeth है, that is used for cutting, and facial flatness, which is common in most East Asian population. So यहाँ पे जो this phenotypical similarity is cited as one of the evidence कि जितने भी जो Mongoloid population है of Southeast Asia, all of them, they have this single ancestor, the local ancestor, the Peking man, और उसमें भी जो morphological जो changes or phenotypical changes है, they reflect in the later population. फिर second, the Southeast Asia, the Java man. So again यहाँ पे same जो local population है, जो modern Southeast Asian है, all of their phenotypical characteristic they are argued to have a continuity from Java man, the Homo erectus. फिर यूरोप के अंदर भी the Neanderthal features like shape of nose, brow ridges, all again the same argument that the modern phenotypical features of modern European, they are traced to the Neanderthal that exist. All in all, the evidence that is cited here, it is about phenotypes, the morphological features, और जो local features हैं जो आप देखते हैं जो यूरोपियन पॉपुलेशन में है, जो एशियन पॉपुलेशन में है, स्पेशली साउथ ईस्ट एशिया एंड ईस्ट एशियन पॉपुलेशन, उनमें जो चेंजेस हैं, all those changes are being traced to the local fossil. जैसे जो साउथ ईस्ट एशियन है, they are tracing their phenotypes to the Java man. वैसे ही जो ईस्ट एशियन पॉपुलेशन है, they are tracing themselves to this Peking man. वैसे यूरोपियंस हैं, they are tracing themselves to the Neanderthal. And here the traits which are cited as evidence: first, shovel shaped incisors, which is common in East Asian and Native American. Then the facial flatness and broad cheekbones, and various other cranial and nasal shapes. All of these are regional adaptations. So ये एक पहला evidence है. Then the second evidence about gene flow between regions. So again, the central idea in this model that no local population was fully isolated. All such local variants, they remain connected via interbreeding, and उस interbreeding की वजह से there was continuous gene flow that maintained the biological unity of species across the globe, and this also allowed the inheritance of advantageous traits to spread globally. And then it also, this gene flow, this interbreeding, genetic exchange, it prevented separate population from becoming different species. So this process is known as reticulate evolution. Reticulate means web-like evolution. Now the criticism of replacement model. So multi-regionalists, they strongly disagree with the idea that AMHS completely replaced early humans, the early archaic Homo sapiens like Neanderthal and Denisovans. So according to them, if they were totally replaced, then it implied that Homo erectus, Neanderthal, and Denisovans, they became extinct without living descendants. And the second thing that is being criticized here is that modern Homo sapiens, modern living Homo sapiens, they came from one region only. So, or in other words, they emphasize this regionality in there. And the argument that has been put forward by them is that there is no strong evidence of violent conquest or complete extinction. So how could the incoming wave, the incoming migratory wave of AMHS from Africa would have replaced the archaic Homo sapiens like Neanderthal or Denisovans? Then the other argument forwarded by them is the fossil continuity, the regional fossil continuity, it shows gradual adaptation. And then they believe that human evolution was polycentric, means parallel, simultaneous, having multiple origins, but it was connected via interbreeding, and that's how no population remained isolated for a long to develop into a newer species. So these were the arguments put forward by them, and even when I try to explain it, I sometimes hesitate because uh, it is not easy to put forward their point of view, even if they are talking about this model, and this model have many supporters, but it's like there are many supporters in political science. There are many supporters of divine origin thing. There are many people who believe in religious principle, in superstition. So just because many people believe in certain thing or believe in a certain idea, you cannot put forward by them. And if being a teacher, if you want to present any idea, just the same example मैं political science में लूँ कि this like some people they are ardent follower of superstition. ये करना है, तंत्र मंत्र करना है, झाड़ू झाड़ू टोट का झाड़ फूंक ये सब करना है. Well, what about a teacher who is going to present that idea? अब मुझे वो चीज समझाना है कि उनका point of view क्या है. So without any substantial, without any scientific basis, it becomes very difficult to clearly put forward any such sideway ideas. So in the same way, this thing, this regional continuity model is one of such sideways. Anyway, uh, now let's talk about challenges and criticism. So first challenge, it is not widely accepted today because the genetic evidence it supports African origin, especially the mitochondrial DNA, the Y-chromosomal analysis, and the non-African genetic diversity is less, which means non-African population is younger. Genetic diversity less means less mutations mean younger population, and no clear transitional fossils in all regions. So, because even if there were many regional variations, but it does not refute this idea that those regional variations like Java man, Peking man, वो सब भी तो अफ्रीका से ही आए थे. So अगर सेपरेटली अपने अपने लोकल एरियाज में अगर वो इवॉल्व हुए हैं, लोकल पॉपुलेशन, लोकल आर्केइक फॉर्म इवॉल्व हुए हैं, तो देयर माइट बी सम continuous fossil sequence which is not there. जैसे जो मॉडर्न ह्यूमंस हैं उसकी जो फॉसिल सीक्वेंस है ही है हमारे पास, ऑस्ट्रेलोपिथेसिन्स टू होमो हैबिलिस टू होमो इरेक्टस टू आर्केइक होमो सेपियंस एंड देन मॉडर्न होमो सेपियंस, ये हमारे पास कॉन्टिन्यूटी है. यहीं पे अगर लोकल पॉपुलेशन है तो उनकी भी एक सिमिलर ये ऐसे ही कॉन्टिन्यूटी होती है, एक कंटिन्यूअस चेन होती है विच इज नॉट देयर. एंड देन the many features which are claimed by them, they are either ambiguous means confusing, not clear, or they may be a sign of convergent evolution, because convergent evolution is a thing of anthropology, is a thing of biology. Evolution में ऐसा होता है कि if different places, different geographies, they have similar characteristic, तो वहां पे रहने वाले जो species हैं they can evolve similar traits. Like let's talk about this territory. This is a A territory, this one is a B territory, and they are thousands of kilometers apart. But both of them, they have similar topography, similar elevation, similar water bodies, similar environmental conditions, similar climate. So ऐसे में जो यहाँ की जो population होगी, species population होगी, they might evolve similar trait, which is about convergent evolution. Now, the next criticism that regional traits are not reliable markers, because the traits that has been cited like shovel shapes, incisors, or high cheekbones or other cranial feature, they are found in multiple population worldwide, and they may be because of convergent evolution, they may be local variation, they may be because of environmental adaptation or genetic drift, and none of them suggest that they necessarily point to the local archaic humans. Now, let's talk about the relevance of this theory. First, this model, it emphasized on regional variation, and it highlighted that modern human, they are not uniform, they have their own local adaptation, local variation, and this model also helped anthropologists appreciate the diverse morphology of human population across different cultures, different species, different populations. Then this model also highlighted the importance of gene flow. क्योंकि हर एक मॉडल जो है it simply cannot be disregarded, especially in science, because science is not a religion, science is not a superstition, and science is not a black and white thing. इस मॉडल के अंदर जो रीजनल कॉन्टिन्यूटी मॉडल के अंदर, the overall idea may not be accepted widely, and the genetic evidence of the broader implication they support the African origin, but still इस मॉडल ने बहुत सारी चीजें highlight की. So first is this diverse local variations, and second, it highlighted this fact that they might have been interbreeding between the local population, and this local population, it might have maintained the gene pool at a constant rate, a uniform gene pool for Homo sapiens. Now this model finally influenced the partial replacement model जो अभी हम देखते हैं. So this modern synthesis, it is, you know, a mixture of both primary African origin and limited admixture with archaic humans. So now let's move on to the partial replacement theory. So this partial replacement model, also known as the assimilation model, it provides a balance between both out of Africa hypothesis and the regional continuity hypothesis. According to this model, modern Homo sapiens, they primarily evolved in Africa around 300 to 200,000 years ago, and they migrated out of Africa around 70,000 to 50,000 years ago, and during this journey, they encountered the local archaic human population such as Neanderthals and Denisovans, and they did not completely replace these archaic Homo sapiens. They had limited genetic admixture, limited interbreeding with them, and over time, the modern humans, the human that migrated out of Africa became the dominant form, but they also carried the genomes of these archaic Homo sapiens, of Neanderthals and Denisovan, that led to partial continuity rather than total replacement. Now, the key proponents of this model: Fred H. Smith, a leading paleoanthropologist, and the second, Eric Trinkaus, who studied fossil evidence and supported the idea of interbreeding. So this model is often called the synthesis because it balances both the models. Now the supporting evidence, first is of genetic admixture, the molecular biology support. So the recent genome studies, especially the recent Swante Pebo report, the Max Planck Institute report, all they reveal that modern human, they interbred with the archaic humans after leaving Africa. Now the findings, first, the Neanderthal DNA, it is present in all modern non-African humans in 1 to 3% of the ratio. Then the populations of Melanesia, Australia, and Southeast Asia, they also carry Denisovan DNA up to 4 to 6%. So these findings, they disapprove that the AMHS that moved out of Africa completely replace Neanderthals and local archaic population. So these studies, they show that there was limited but significant gene flow between AMHS and archaic Homo sapiens. And there's also talk about introgress genes. So introgress genes, like where it is the exchange of genes across populations because of interbreeding. Now the second evidence, fossil morphology, anatomical clues. So several fossils, they show combination of modern and archaic traits, which suggest either hybridization or retention of ancestral features. But this introgression, is it related to the hybridization? Because when genes are exchanged, फिर बाकी आप जानते ही हैं, when genes are exchanged, the genetic recombination, the meiosis, इसके अंदर जेनेटिक रिकॉम्बिनेशन में जो बेटर ट्रेड्स होंगे वही रिटेन होंगे. एनीवे, सो जो हाइब्रिडाइज ट्रेड्स हैं या जो मिक्स ऑफ मॉडर्न एंड आर्केइक ट्रेड्स हैं, उनके एग्जांपल्स हैं स्पूल एंड काफजे इन इजराइल 100,000 years ago. So यहाँ पे the skulls, they show modern cranial walls and chin, means modern AMHS features, but they have pronounced brow ridges and robustness. These are the primitive, the archaic features. Where the Grimaldi fossils, that is dated around 25,000 years ago. So और इसे पहले वाले वीडियो में ही देखा था that it had slender and modern build. These are modern features, but the facial features that they are reminiscent of African ancestry, and they have been debate about, you know, resembling the Negroid similarity, Negroid symmetry about that fossil. So यहाँ पे आप यहाँ again दो different pop features हैं. फिर uh, this this fossil, Lagar Value Child, Portugal, 24,000 years ago. So यहाँ पे the fossil it show Neanderthal like leg bones but modern human cranial features. Again, admixture of modern and archaic features. So all these evidence they suggest morphological blending occurred and that support the idea of assimilation rather than clean replacement. Then the third evidence, archaeological, the cultural blending one. So in several parts of the world, tool industry and symbolic behavior, they also show interaction rather than complete replacement. Means अगर population, AMHS and archaic humans, अगर उनके बीच में इंटरेक्शन हुआ होगा तो फिर टू जो कल्चरल इंटरेक्शन भी हुआ होगा, कल्चरल एक्सचेंजेस भी होंगे. तो उनके जो एग्जांपल्स हैं, दिस वन Lutzian industry in Italy. So this is found in southern Europe during time when Neanderthal and modern human coexisted, and this site combined both middle and upper Paleolithic element, which suggests technological and cultural exchange, because middle Paleolithic tool industry is associated with Neanderthal, whereas modern humans they are associated with upper Paleolithic culture. Now, if both the cultural elements are existing in the same site, it means there was cultural exchange. Here, chattel Peronian tools from France. So this is associated with Neanderthal, but show Upper Paleolithic innovation. Again, a fusion, a cultural exchange. Here, Blombus Cave in South Africa and Lascaux in France. Here, both the sites they indicate symbolic behavior and cultural complexity, which emerge different time in different regions. So here they were the the cultural artifacts here, the cultural fossil here, they show that they had been contact, the behavioral assimilation, the cultural assimilation, and this cultural assimilation might have accompanied genetic assimilation. So in other words, this these are cultural artifacts or cultural evidence which are forwarded to support the idea of genetic assimilation. कि अगर पॉपुलेशन के बीच में जेनेटिक एक्सचेंज हुआ है यानी पॉपुलेशन व को एग्जिस्टिंग तो उनके बीच में कल्चरल एक्सचेंज भी होगा. Now the implication, first it acknowledges African origin but also accept interactions, and the second one is it explains regional genetic signatures. So it does not completely refute the regional continuity model, and instead it says that most modern population, non-African population, they are not purely of African descent, but they also carry genetic traces of archaic humans like Neanderthals and Denisovans. So even if these DNA thing, these DNA changes, they are small, but they are meaningful. And the third significance that it avoids the extreme purity of African model, and it then avoid the regional continuity model and provide a balanced and realistic model. Now the comparative summary. First, out of Africa theory. Here the AMHS, they origin around 300,000 role. Here they were replaced by modern, and the gene flow it was minimal, and key evidence African fossils, mitochondrial DNA and archaeology. Now the second, the regional continuity or multi-regional model, it suggests that AMHS they evolved parallel in multiple regions, and they are direct ancestor of local population. Gene flow was continuous to prevent any local population from developing into a separate species, and key evidence regional traits, fossil continuity. And finally, the partial replacement model. which says that Africa is the origin, but the AMHS, they interbred with archaic Homo sapiens, and the gene flow, it was limited. And then we have these genetic analysis, the genetic statistics. Now for UGC anthropology, I'm adding this new thing here, critical insights. So UGC often asks question about comparison between these three models, and also ask about their key components and their supporting fossil, genetic or cultural evidence. Where fossil like Homo, Cro-Magnon, Gene-Moshan, Lake Mumbo, they are frequently referenced, and many such genetic markers like mitochondrial Eve and DNA admixture are also asked. और ये सब जो है, I have already provided a lecture. Previous lecture was on these AMHS, where like various cultural elements are also asked, like levalua, origination, burial practice, symbolic behavior. फिर एक बार क्वेश्चन देख लेते हैं. So first question is about out of Africa hypothesis. Then the next three questions for comparison between the regional continuity model and out of Africa hypothesis. The fossil and genetic evidences are also asked, where the same third model, partial replacement or assimilation model, and its integration with the earlier models, where the role of genetic evidence has been asked, especially mitochondrial DNA and Y-chromosomal studies, where the fossils of Skull and Kafze, they have been asked to examine to understand migration. The tool industry like Levallois, Aurignacian, Magdalenian, they have also been asked. So these are the questions, और उसी के हिसाब से आपका कंटेंट प्रिपेयर किया है. And if there is something that I have not took up, something that went out of radar, then you can drop the comments. And moreover, it's very hot at this time, and some of you might be preparing for prelims. So good luck for prelims. And if you are watching these video and finding them helpful, then you can support free education with a voluntary contribution. Any amount will be appreciated. And then please subscribe. If you have any question, it's not about subscription or voluntary contribution. It's about supporting education, and I'm here for that. So if you have any question about anything, even about the way I explain topics or something that you need further explanation, you can drop the comments. I'm always here for you. Thank you.